There's a moment a lot of people don't talk about. It's late at night, you're scrolling through apartment listings, maybe Zillow, maybe Facebook Marketplace, and everything feels just slightly out of reach. Not impossible, just uncomfortable. The rent is higher than you expected, the mortgage calculators feel optimistic, almost unrealistic, and even when you can afford something, it doesn't feel like a place you actually want to live. So you close the app and you tell yourself, I'll figure it out later. But later keeps coming and nothing really changes. And if you're honest, it's not just about money anymore. It's starting to feel like something deeper is off. Most people think the housing crisis is simple. They think it's just about prices going up, interest rates being too high, or not earning enough. And yeah, those things matter, but that's not the full picture. Because if it were just about numbers, we'd solve it with math. Work a little more, save a little longer, buy something smaller. Problem solved. But that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is more psychological than people realize. Because the real crisis isn't just that housing is expensive, it's that housing no longer feels stable. And that changes everything. There used to be a very clear story around housing. You grow up, you get a job, you save, and eventually you buy a home. That home wasn't just a place to live, it was stability, it was identity, it was proof that you were doing okay. And for a long time, that story mostly worked. But somewhere along the way, the rules quietly changed, and nobody really stopped to explain it. Now, housing sits in this strange space between necessity and investment. It's something you need to live, but it's also something people are trying to profit from. And when those two things collide, things get complicated. Because when housing becomes an investment first and shelter second, prices don't just reflect what people can afford, they reflect what people are willing to bet on. And that's where a lot of the tension comes from. You're not just competing with other people trying to live, you're competing with investors, with algorithms, with people who already have assets trying to multiply them. And suddenly, the game feels different. But here's the part people don't say out loud. Even when you can play the game, it still feels off, because the emotional weight of housing has changed. Think about it. Buying a home used to feel like a milestone. Now it often feels like a risk. You're not just asking, can I afford this? You're asking, what if prices drop? What if I'm stuck here? What if I lose my job? What if I'm making the wrong move at the wrong time? And that uncertainty, it lingers, even for people who technically made it, even for people who bought homes, because the foundation doesn't feel as solid as it used to. And when something as basic as shelter starts to feel unstable, it affects more than just your finances. It affects how you think about your future. It affects how long you stay in jobs you don't like just to keep income predictable. It affects relationships because decisions about where to live become heavier, more permanent. It even affects how you define success, because now success isn't just about owning something, it's about not being trapped by it. And that's a very different mindset. At some point, I started realizing something that changed how I look at all of this. The housing crisis isn't just about affordability, it's about flexibility, and more importantly, the loss of flexibility. Because when housing costs take up too much space in your life, they quietly take away your options. Not all at once, but slowly. You hesitate to switch careers. You delay moving to a new city. You think twice before taking time off, because everything starts revolving around one fixed expense. And the more fixed your life becomes, the more fragile it can feel. That's the part people don't really prepare you for. Owning something expensive doesn't always create freedom. Sometimes it creates pressure. And once you see that, the conversation shifts. It's no longer just about how do I buy a house, it becomes what kind of life does this decision create? And that question is a lot more powerful because it brings you back to something that often gets lost in all the noise. The idea that housing is supposed to support your life, not control it. So what do you actually do with that? Because this isn't about avoiding reality or pretending prices don't matter. They do. But there's a quieter approach that a lot of people are starting to take, even if they don't talk about it much. Some people are choosing to rent longer, not because they have to, but because it gives them breathing room. Not being locked into a mortgage means they can pivot faster, change jobs, move cities, take opportunities that don't fit neatly into a fixed 30-year plan. Others are buying, but differently. They're not stretching to the absolute maximum just to win the house. They're leaving space in their budget, even if it means buying something less impressive. Because they've realized that financial pressure doesn't feel worth the image of success. And then there are people rethinking what a home even means. Smaller spaces, different locations, less focus on status, more focus on how it actually feels to live there. None of these choices are perfect, and none of them guarantee anything, but they all come from the same shift in thinking, prioritizing flexibility over optics, prioritizing peace of mind over proving something. And that's where things start to feel a little more manageable. Because you're no longer chasing a version of housing that might not even fit your life. You're building something that does. It's easy to feel like you're behind when it comes to housing, like you missed some window or didn't move fast enough or didn't make the right decision at the right time. But the truth is, a lot of people feel that way right now, even the ones who look like they have it figured out. Because this isn't just a personal problem, it's a shifting system, and when systems shift, it takes time for people to adjust. So if things feel uncertain, or slower than you expected, or just different than what you were told growing up, that doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're navigating something that doesn't have clear rules anymore. And maybe the goal isn't to perfectly time the market, or to force yourself into a version of success that doesn't feel right. Maybe the goal is something quieter than that. To build a life where your housing supports you, where your decisions leave room to breathe, and where you're not constantly one step away from feeling stuck. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about where you live. It's about how it feels to live there. And that feeling matters more than people think. If this video resonated with you, the next one goes even deeper. Click the video on your screen now. You don't want to miss it.